The 2025-26 season is looking less and less like a temporary dip for Real Madrid and more like a full-blown systemic failure. A few months ago, it still felt as though the club might somehow rescue things through sheer star quality and that familiar Madrid magic. Now, though, the picture is far too clear. As of 8th April 2026, Real sits second in La Liga, but they are already 7 points behind Barcelona. 76 for the Catalans, 69 for Madrid after 30 matches. And the most painful part is not simply being in second place, but the manner in which they ended up there. The season began with huge expectations. The squad looked immensely strong on paper, packed with big names and star players in almost every area of the pitch. But as early as the autumn, it became obvious that the side lacked both balance and consistency. Under Xabi Alonso, Real were unable to turn a collection of elite footballers into a coherent system. His short spell in Madrid was marked by internal tensions and clashes with senior players, including Federico Valverde and Vinicius Jr. In other words, the issue was not just tactical, but also deeply rooted in the atmosphere inside the dressing room. The turning point came with the Spanish Super Cup. In the final, Real lost 3-2 to Barcelona. Another El Clasico defeat proved too painful to ignore, and the very next day the club announced that Xabi Alonso had left by mutual consent. It seemed at first that a change of manager might give the team the jolt it needed. Alonso was replaced by Álvaro Arbeloa, but the reality turned out to be even harsher. In his very first match, the new manager was knocked out of the Copa del Rey after a 3-2 defeat to Albacete, a second-tier side. It was not merely a bad night at the office, but a major blow to the reputation of the entire team. Arbeloa took responsibility afterwards, but that was not really the point. The bigger issue was that the managerial change solved none of Real Madrid's underlying problems. Things in the league continued to unravel as well. Real dropped far too many points in matches where a club of this stature simply cannot afford to slip up. In March, they lost 1-0 at home to Getafe. That was followed by a 2-1 defeat to Osasuna. Then, more recently, Madrid were beaten 2-1 by Mallorca, who at the time were fighting to avoid relegation. Those are the matches that best explain why Barcelona have pulled clear. Not because Real collapsed in one particular blockbuster fixture, but because they kept falling apart against weaker opposition. At that stage, it is no longer bad luck, it is a pattern. On paper, Real Madrid still have one of the most frightening squads in Europe. Kylian Mbappé continues to score goals and remains the team's main source of danger in attack. Against Bayern, it was Mbappé who kept their hopes alive by pulling one back. But that sums up the season's biggest problem. Real have become far too dependent on individual brilliance. When the magic of Mbappe, Vinicius, or Bellingham fails to appear, the team's structure starts to crumble. The match against Bayern only reinforced that feeling. In the first leg of the Champions League quarter-final, Real lost 2-1 at home. Bayern controlled most of the first half and punished Madrid for their passivity and sloppiness in possession. Yes, Real still have the return leg in Munich, but losing at home at this stage of the competition is already a worrying sign, especially when the Champions League has effectively become their last real chance to salvage the season. So who is to blame? First of all, the managerial chaos. Alonso failed to get a grip on the side and, according to Reuters, lost the backing of part of the dressing room leadership group. Secondly, Arbeloa has yet to show that he can stabilize the situation quickly. Since his appointment, Real have gone out of the cup and continue to drop points in the league. Thirdly, the players themselves must take responsibility.
With a squad of this quality, losing to Albacete, Getafe, Osasuna, and Mallorca, all in the same season, is simply unacceptable. And finally, there is the atmosphere itself. Arbeloa has already admitted that, after a run of defeats, the mood in the dressing room was far from healthy. When the manager says that openly, it is clear the tension inside the squad is serious. The verdict as of today sounds harsh, but fair. Real Madrid's 2025-26 season has, so far, been a failure. The team have surrendered top spot in La Liga and allowed Barcelona to open up a 7-point gap. They lost the Super Cup. They were knocked out of the Copa del Rey by a Segunda club, and they have already lost the first leg against Bayern in the Champions League. For an ordinary big club, that would simply count as a disappointing season. But for Real Madrid, with their ambitions, budget, and squad, it amounts to a genuine collapse. And unless something extraordinary happens over the next few weeks, this campaign in Madrid will be remembered as a season of missed opportunities, poor decisions, and a team that never truly came together.